Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. I am your host, Hondo Carpenter. I'm also your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer on SI, and it's great to have you here for our mock draft 4.0, our official mock draft, what we're hearing, what's going on, and we've got the latest for you. Now, how do we do our mock drafts? I take 5 people who I know well who work in the NFL and ask them to give me their top 5 picks. So all the picks before the Raiders. And then I value those picks. So if you have somebody as the number 1 pick, I give that 5 points. If you have somebody as the 5th pick, I give it 1 point. And then I weigh them. So this guy who will be gone. And then I send him back and say, here are the 5 guys that are going to be gone in our latest mock draft. Who would you have the Raiders taking at 6 if a trade was not possible? So please remember this mock draft is in light of no trade being possible. And let's get started here. Number 1, I have the Raiders taking Ashton Jeanty, the running back out of Boise State. This is not the first time in my mock drafts I have them taking him. They really like him. While not a dude, which means a can't miss prospect, he is a young man with generational talent. His only 2 weaknesses are, one is his arms are a little bit short, so there's concern about that's where his fumbling is coming from, which in the NFL, which is significantly more physical, that is a concern. The other has to do with, again, just level of competition that Boise State goes against. The second one is really not that big a deal. The first one is legitimate, but he is a generational type talent in college. Many believe that he's the best running back to come on. And remember, this includes Bijan Robinson. Many believe he's the best running back to come out since Saquon, but hear me out here. But nobody thinks he's Saquon, so don't hear that either. But they think he's a generational talent, a 3-down back, which instantly helps the Raiders. You've got Brock Bowers, you got Jacoby, you got Trey, a lot of offense, a lot of offense. And they expect or would think that Ashton Jeanty would go here for the Raiders, which would be a terrific pick. Next, in round 2, a guy that drops a little bit, but not because of talent. It's because there are so many bad drafting teams in the NFL. The Raiders in the second round at pick 37, we have getting Kenneth Grant, the defensive tackle out of Michigan, a massive, powerful force. Just continue to shore up the lines, which is where this new leadership plans on focusing the Raiders, being intelligent with the Raiders, and working with the Raiders. Great teams, no matter where they go, they always have one eye on both lines. Kenneth Grant would be a terrific addition for the Las Vegas Raiders. That third round pick, number 68, uh, AZAREY'H Thomas, the cornerback out of Ohio State. He is a very interesting corner, extremely physical, very, very physical. So he automatically fits the Patrick Graham system. He is a ball hawk. He's a hitter. He's not afraid to come up. There is no fear. There's no coward in this guy out of Florida State. He would come in and instantly be a guy who would get to play. Can play inside, can play outside. You got Jacorian and Jack. You also got some other guys on that team, not saying they don't, but this is a guy that would come in immediately and be in the mix. Got a little bit of swag to him. This is a guy that would come in and very much be a big addition for the Raiders in the third round. In the fourth round, we have the late Raiders picking up their quarterback, Will Howard of Ohio State. I want you to listen to this for a minute. He was fortunate in college to have Chip Kelly. He also had Jeff Christensen, who many believe is the best quarterback coach. The best, I'm sorry, I've been doing a ton of interviews. Who many believe is the best quarterback coach in the NFL. He's not an NFL quarterback coach, but he works with Patrick Mahomes. He's great. Will did terrific under him. Then in training for the combine, they had him switch instructors, which made absolutely no sense. And Will killed everything at the combine, but his throwing was not good at all. Because of that, and many believe it had to do with the changing of instructors, which was nonsensical. Wasn't his decision. It was, according to people in the league, it was representation. It really hurt him. That's going to help his stock to drop a little bit. So the Raiders still get the quarterback that they really like in Will Howard. They actually just get him around later. That's a very big deal. And Will Howard is definitely a guy that can sit behind Geno and really learn and do a lot from Geno. Then in the 5th round, Jared Wilson, the offensive lineman out of Georgia, the Dogs. This is a guy that many people believe on a lot of teams would step in instantly and be a starter. On the Raiders, he's certainly going to compete. He's going to give Dylan Parham and he's going to give Jordan Meredith a real fight for that job. But neither one of those guys is slouches, but instantly he can play every interior position. So he can play both guards. He can play center. And instantly you got a guy in your offensive line who's extremely talented. And you also have a guy on your offensive line who brings a toughness and edge and is a starter. And then I'm only going to go through the first pick in the 6th round. I'm not going to go through the compensatories or the 7th round pick. But in the 6th round, just the way that I think the draft is going to, actually how they think the draft is going to fall, have the Raiders taken in Antwain Wells of Ole Miss, the wide receiver of Ole Miss. This is a kid that is really tough. This is a kid that is super tough. This is a youngster that's going to bring some real physicality. He's a danger. He had some injury issue, but other than that, this is a guy that just showed toughness, fought through stuff. He is very good. Now he has got to get better, and he's going to have to be coached up. But there's no 6th round pick that does it. Now, I've shared with you before, a lot of people in the NFL believe, and I agree, and I agree with them 110%, but that your 1st through 5th round guys got to make your team, and you hope your 6th and 7th round guys do at least make the practice squad. This is a guy in Twain that I would expect to make the actual 53-man roster. And I think he's going to drop a little bit. And because I don't think people are going to be as detailed, but I've had more than one person tell me he's an intriguing day 3 wide receiver. He's got all the tools and the work ethic to do it. And they think that the right environment, which is with a Pete Carroll, that could absolutely happen. So let's just review one more time. Ashton Jeanty at 1, pick 6. Pick 37 in the 2nd round, Kenneth Grant. Pick 68 in the 3rd, AZAREY'H Thomas, the corner out of Florida State. Round 4, pick 108, Will Howard. Round 5, pick 143, Jared Wilson. Round 6, pick 180, Antwain Wells. I think that'd be a very solid draft for the Raiders. Extremely solid draft. Now, because we're doing mocks, I need to address a couple of things. I think there are a couple of guys that the Raiders would absolutely stay at 6 and pick. However, I don't know that those couple of guys are going to be available. So I believe if I had to guess percentage wise, my largest percentage would be in the Raiders drafting back and stepping back a little bit, still picking up a very good player. Excuse me. And adding some picks. and getting to add picks because there's a lot of bad drafting teams, getting to add potential impact players. I mean, when you look at this mock draft and you had a Kenneth Grant and you had a Jared Wilson, those are two guys on your lines, immediate impact. Will Howard would not be an immediate impact guy, long-term answer after Geno Smith. But, you look at Ashton Jeanty, instant impact player. And AZAREY'H, you look at him, impact player. He's going to play immediately. He's going to take reps on defense and special teams. And I think the same way when you look at Antoine, I think you're going to see a guy that would absolutely play wide receiver and get those reps on special teams. So I think there's a lot of value in this draft. Again, I stand by what I've been telling you since the last owners' meetings. The Raiders are in a trade mood. And if somebody makes them an offer they cannot refuse, I would expect them to make a trade before the draft. But they're not going to, I don't think they'll trade before the draft unless somebody blows them away at all. Because at 6, there's a lot of bad drafting teams ahead of them. A lot. So there are some really good players that could drop. Now, let me give you one, but there are several. Let me give you one example. And I think he told me thousands, but I know the Raiders did hundreds of mock drafts. I thought Dave Ziegler told me thousands, but I reserve the right for that to be hundreds of mock drafts. And they never once had a mock draft where Brock Bowers fell to them at 13. Not one place. So here were the Raiders sitting there, and here's a guy that they have as listed as a dude, a number 1 grade. And he's coming down. And so people wanted to trade. LA Rams tried desperately to trade with the Raiders to get up to 13 to pick Brock Bowers. But the Raiders weren't willing to just trade what a 13th pick was worth on Jimmy Johnson's trade chart because they knew here's a generational talent and a dude in Brock Bowers. So they stayed and picked. If somebody made them an offer they can't refuse, I believe the Raiders would trade today. However, you're looking at an Abdul Carter and one or two other players that you think could have a massive impact. One for sure, but maybe two. You don't really want to trade unless somebody blows your mind, because even though I do not see a scenario where Abdul Carter doesn't go in the top 5, I still see it. I didn't see it for Brock Bowers either. And so you have to keep your options open when you're a top 10 pick. So a lot of you have asked me, Hondo, you say you think the percentage chances trade, when do you think that would happen? Again, I don't think it would happen before the trade, but if the Raiders are sitting there on the clock, I could see the Raiders having a deal with somebody saying, hey, we want this guy. If he's there at 6, let's already have a trade package worked out so we can trade with you. I totally see that. In fact, I don't think that's outlandish at all. I would be stunned if that hasn't already begun to happen. But what I am telling you is that is the mentality right now inside the building. Hey, we have a couple guys we'd love to get at 6. If they're not available, let's trade. But unless somebody wows us, let's wait in case one of those guys drops. Brock Bowers was a defining moment in this draft last year because the Raiders had gone through so many years of bad drafting. And to Ziegler's credit, he had done very well. But now in comes Telesco with the same BPA mentality, best player available. And they saw a dude drop. And I think now eyes have been opened. Now, Spytech operated like that and Brady before the draft, before they even got here. But I think now people are like, okay, great. We can hold our spot If somebody doesn't drop, then we trade. But why trade now? Unless somebody wants to blow their mind. I mean, if somebody wants to do something stupid, great. Great. You want to do something stupid? Wonderful. Merry Christmas to Raider Nation. But that's where that sits right now. And there is a lot of speculation around the league. I get asked all the time, what do you think the Raiders are going to do? My genuine answer is I think the Raiders will probably trade. I think there's a couple guys that they would take at 6, and if those guys are not available, I think that they would like to trade down. But depending how far, because I don't know, first of all, I would never say anything that I think would hurt the Raiders. And but when they just ask general opinion, I mean, I think that's the reality because you don't know. The Raiders don't know what they're going to do at 6. I think they have an absolute game plan. Boom, Abdul Carter, take him. 2, player X, take him. 3, player Y, maybe. 4, trade. And I think 3 and 4 could be really the same. If this guy's there, maybe, but what can we get for a trade? I think that's probably how that would play based on what I know. And so as this draft is coming, and this is our 4th mock draft, as it's coming and kind of coming at you, I would really encourage you to do your research and look at some of these guys. Just go back and look. I mean, if you can get an Antwain Wells out of Ole Miss in the 6th round, but again, some people think he's going to drop a little bit. That's a big get. Again, Will Howard dropping a little bit. I think more has to do with losing Jeff Christensen than anything else. But Chip Kelly knows everything about him and knows how he did. So there you go. That is our 4th mock draft. Thanks everybody for joining us. Make sure you tune in tomorrow. We got a really special podcast for you. I think you're going to enjoy it greatly. Until then, we'll see you later. God bless you, everybody.